you're one of the few female uh, director of sales that I've met in the snow industry. And I was just curious, what's that like? And what was it like getting to this point?
At the beginning, when you meet certain people, you'll go through hurdles, especially if you're going on a walk with a potential customer. They might assume that the office sent a secretary or admin and that you don't actually know anything about getting the plowing done when they realize I actually do. And we start talking through things. Um, the conversation turns quickly and it's actually a lot easier to earn their trust. It's not a problem at all anymore. I don't feel awkward or weird sitting at the table with, a lot of the people in my position are definitely men. But it doesn't really affect me and bother me anymore. It just is what it is.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Landscaper's Guide. Today I'm excited to interview Stacey Hinson, who's the Director of Sales at Snow Systems, and she's going to share how she's done over $50 million of commercial snow sales. So Stacey, welcome to the Landscaper's Guide podcast.
Hi, Jack. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit more about your background. Where are you from? How did you get into the snow business?
So I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. Snow Systems was actually a customer of mine when I was working for a small business going to college. And one thing led to another when, the economy was crashing back in '08. And then I actually came over to Snow Systems to be the office manager. And I kind of fell into learning about sales and becoming a sponge and just absorbing all the information. And this was such a new industry and something that I really didn't know much about. And then within a year, I had actually sold my first major account, and it kind of just took its own road from there.
Well, that's awesome. I'm curious, which suburb are you from? I'm from Arlington Heights.
I grew up in Antioch.
Okay, cool. So you grew up in Antioch, and where did you go to college?
I went to Columbia. So I actually majored in criminal justice with emphasis on death investigation.
That's interesting. I've met many people who are now in sales and marketing who studied criminology or something like that. What's the deal? How are they similar? Why are you guys in sales and marketing now?
They're not actually. It's just a coincidence. I wanted to work at the coroner's office is what I wanted to do. And for what you do there, the pay really wasn't great. And when I came over to Snow Systems, it was a better opportunity, definitely at the time. And oddly enough, I still wanted to do that part time, but it wasn't a reasonable request. Um, and I don't really think that I don't think I thought this was going to be my career path, but yet here I am, and it definitely was. I thought I would end up in that field, which has no relation at all whatsoever, other than it's intriguing to me. And yet, I mean, I still love it. I'm still interested by it, but I don't think that I'll be working in that field at any time.
Do you listen to like crime podcasts for fun?
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
I like any movie or anything like that. Anything like that. I'm into people who don't want to see gory pictures. I'm all about it.
So tell us a little more. What is Snow Systems? What do you guys do? And as a director of sales, how many people do you work with?
So our office probably has about 20, 22 people. Um, I manage everything that's basically customer related, everything from, actually selling the job to customer relations, communications, anything like that. Um, we started off being only in the Chicago area and now we're in 44 states. A lot of my sales were ones that took us into national portfolios where these national companies that are having an issue managing their snow removal or didn't want to deal with too many contractors. And we're one of the very few national companies who actually self-perform more than we don't. We have service partners that we will utilize on certain sites, but it'll be a hybrid because we'll help provide the heavy equipment and the iron.
That's awesome. And so did you work in sales prior to working at Snow Systems?
I did a little bit. I worked for a company that sold snow plows, pushers, trucks, trailers, stuff like that. So I knew a little bit about that's how I actually met Snow Systems was that they were a customer.
Oh, okay. So they were the customer for that business. That's cool.
Yeah,
So
correct.
before we pressed record, we were talking about you're one of the few female uh, director of sales that I've met in the snow industry, and I was just curious, what's that like, and what was it like getting to this point?
It's been a fun ride. At the beginning, when you meet certain people, you'll go through hurdles, especially if you're going on a walk with a potential customer. They might assume that the office sent a secretary or admin and that you don't actually know anything about getting the plowing done on the ground, on their site. But when they realize I actually do, and we start talking through things, um, the conversation turns quickly, and it's actually a lot easier to earn their trust and, talk through the process. And, it's all about communication and talking through what their hurdles are and what are the issues that they had. And, um, but there was definitely people who are like, oh, she's a woman. She has no idea how to plow snow. Um, but now, like in the industry, I know so many people that I've met over the years, so many different networking things that I've attended in addition to like SIMA and ASCA and things like that, that it's not a problem at all anymore. I don't feel awkward or weird sitting at the table with, a lot of the people in my position are definitely men. But it doesn't really affect me and bother me anymore. It just is what it is.
That's good. That's good. What tips would you have for people from a sales standpoint? What are some of the things that you coach and manage your own team to do that you feel are working?
I think one of the biggest things that I always tell them is don't lie to the customer. Don't lie to them to make the sale. Don't sell them on one thing and then, flip the script once we're in the operation. Some customers have unrealistic expectations. You need to call them out on the unrealistic expectation when they're telling you about it. Obviously, not in a disrespectful manner. You need to just have the discussion and explain it to them. An example, I guess, would be, we have customers, you ask them what their tolerance is, what's your trigger? And they're like, I don't want the snow to ever hit the ground. Well, that's not realistic. The snow has to hit the ground. Then we can plow it. And you give them the list and the steps of what you're going to do once it's on the ground. Catching it in the sky is not realistic. And don't lead them to believe that it is. Like it's just a false assumption that anybody can make. And for me, when things are going wrong, if you're behind, if your guys are going to be late, things happen all the time during a snowstorm. You're not going to stop that. Contact the customer, communicate with them, give them the heads up that, hey, the guys are a little bit behind. The weather came faster and harder than it was supposed to. You will earn their respect. And then you're not lying. You're not trying to hide anything. You're letting them know exactly what's going on, and they appreciate that. And they will continue doing business with you and be loyal if they feel that you're being loyal to them and communicating. And I think that's where a lot of my customers and successes come from is that I just tell them like it is, even if it's bad.
Yeah, I like that. There's a saying that I share with my team. It's bad news gets worse with age.
True.
So if something is off track, the sooner you tell the client, the more likely they are to trust and respect you. Whereas if they're noticing it and bringing it to you, then that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be in any industry. It doesn't matter. Like you said, your team does it and you don't want them to be afraid to bring it to you, right? I'm sure you tell them, you got to tell me when something's wrong so you can get it fixed.
So telling people the truth, what are some other things that you feel are working for you that have helped you reach $50 million in sales?
I don't know. I think, a lot of it is just reputation and, the background of the company and the equipment. Obviously, that helps as well. I can go in and sell it and I can be the person communicating, but at the same time, Snow Systems has been around since 1979. It's never changed owners. The reputation's there. The self-performing heavy equipment is there. Um, it's a lot easier to sell when you have a good company and good ownership behind you and the resources that you need to do it. If I have a customer who's requesting a specific piece of equipment, or something that's unique or special and might not be sitting in the shop. As long as the customer is obviously large enough and I can justify the cost, we'll make sure that that customer has that piece of equipment, even if it is specialty.
So are you guys self-performing in all 44 states that you serve?
We could be to a point, yes, but we have to use service partners in some areas where it's hard to get labor. But we'll use service partners and we will do a hybrid in some scenarios, and a lot of our competitors don't. So we might have this amazing landscape company who's got the labor, the operators, the drivers, and the owner will even be in a piece of equipment for me, but they can't afford the capital and the expense to put the equip, purchase the equipment and put it on the job. We'll provide the equipment to them. Obviously, there's some paperwork that follows, but we will provide it, and then they'll do an amazing job on the property. That works versus just subcontracting it out with no control. You can't do that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for anybody.
I'm wondering, do you have other things that you wanted me to talk to you about or that you wanted to ask me about?
Well, I guess I'd like to ask the same questions. How did you guys start and how did you guys get so big?
Well, we started similar to many landscape companies started just doing the work, meaning I started out freelancing doing social media and email. I learned SEO and I started pulling in freelancers who did web development, SEO, project management, and I realized that there was an opportunity to build a company that served small businesses. And that grew. It kept growing and growing, and I became what I now call an accidental employer, meaning I really didn't know how to hire and manage people and accidentally hired people and learned the hard way about payroll and insurance and taxes and had a lot of debt. And around that time, I found a business coach who encouraged me to pick a niche market and to like really get specific. And I was doing public speaking and I spoke at a garden center and landscape show where I shared the story of how I used to work. I used to work at Pesci's Flowers. Have you ever been there in Des Plaines?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I worked, yeah, so if you're in the Chicago area, it's a pretty well-known garden center, nursery, and flower shop. So I worked there for I think 5 spring and summers, and that I didn't really think of as a green industry career. It was really just a summer job. But later on, I realized when I was doing marketing that I did know a lot about the landscape industry, and I was able to help my landscape clients get results, and that earned referrals, and I started speaking more. And it eventually became about half of my business. I've been in business 16 years, and about 8 years ago, I decided to go all in on landscape.
Okay.
And that continued to evolve, and we began to get clients who also did snow. And as I began to work with them, I realized like, wow, the snow industry is actually it's complementary to the landscape, to the green industry, but it's really its own thing. And so we joined SIMA about 5 years ago and really put a lot of effort into studying and learning what works for commercial snow. And honestly, there's a lot of overlap with what works for my own sales and marketing because I sell business to business. A lot of what I do to get my own leads and do my own sales, I now help my commercial snow and landscape clients do. There's a fair amount of outbound marketing, networking, business development, strategic partnerships. And that's somewhat relevant to the residential landscape industry, but it's definitely relevant to commercial.
Yeah. That was one of the things when I started selling snow was I never wanted to be a salesperson, right? It was not something that I saw myself doing. It just kind of happened. But it was explained that it's a service. It's not, trying to sell the vacuum cleaner to somebody who already has five. It's a service that businesses need. It's a safety service at that, and they're going to pick somebody. Every year they have to have somebody. So once I, understood that from just the traditional salesperson, it was a lot more easygoing. And people are more susceptible to talking to you because they need it. They need somebody. Somebody has to do the snow removal for them. So they're going to pick somebody.
Well, good. So if you could share maybe one final takeaway with the audience of what's working, what would it be?
Just, have pride in what you do and be loyal. And it's a lot of just basic things. Whatever, how you would want somebody to treat you, whether it's just in life, in business, that's what it is. I think it's completely relationship based, and creating relationships and communication and being open and honest is, I truly think, some of the main components of the success that I've had. It's not the same for everybody, but for me, I would definitely say those are the things that matter the most, especially when it comes to retaining a customer. If they feel that they can trust you and you're loyal to them and you've got their back, a lot of times they won't even take their portfolio back to bid. You'll get the increase you need and they'll just keep you.
Well, why? I agree with you. I often talk about the basics of like calling people back, responding to emails, kind of basic stuff that I actually think really matter a lot in business. Why do you think so many people fail at this basic stuff?
I don't know. I don't understand if they think that I can tell a big fib now and no one's going to uncover it later. Of course they're going to uncover it later. You said you'd move that snow pile and you didn't. Or you said you'd catch the snow in the bucket and you didn't. Well, you can't, it's always going to surface. Issues are always going to happen. And it's all about how you deal with it. Even an accident on a job, we plow snow. Yes, we want everything safe, efficient, no accidents, no damage. It happens. Be honest, tell the customer, fix it, pay for it, don't argue about it. And it's simple. And I don't understand why people fail at that. It's to me, those things are the difference of keeping them as a customer versus losing them. And it is a lot easier to keep your customers than it is to have to go out and replace them.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Stacy. So for folks who are listening who want to network with you, how can we get in touch?
You can share my information if you'd like. I can provide my phone number and email address.
Cool. I'll put those in the show notes. And Stacey Hinson from Snow Systems, thanks so much for coming on the Landscaper's Guide.
Thank you very much for having me.
I love working with people like Snow Systems who are growing, doing great things in the industry. And if you do great things in the industry and want to have a conversation with me and my team about your sales and marketing, book a 15-minute marketing brainstorm at landscapersguide.com/brainstorm. See our show notes for a link. My name's Jack Jostes. You've been watching the Landscaper's Guide. I hope you like this video, subscribe, because we post videos just like this every week to grow the snow and landscape industry. And with that, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.